3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
Grok Talk.
We'd like to thank everyone for listening, hanging in there, those of you who tune in on the podcast, and of course our listeners at therock.hcr.com. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Reminder, of course, we are on Facebook and Twitter. Just look for Granite Grok, and you can listen to this and past programs on Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and of course at GraniteGrok.com. We are also on YouTube and Ustream. We'd like to also thank again Carly Fiorina for being on earlier in the program. If you missed her, check back for the podcast later tomorrow or today, whenever it goes up, and you can give a listen. Also, Tim Wigley from the Western Energy Alliance, and we've already talked to them. So we're going to move on and talk to somebody new, somebody from the North Country, somebody who has announced that he is running for the New Hampshire State Senate. Welcome to the program, New Hampshire State Rep Leon Rideout. Good morning.
Morning. Thank you for having me on.
Hey, thanks for using a landline.
Yeah, it makes it a little better, huh?
Oh, my Lord, the difference in audio quality is astounding. So, you're up there. How's the weather up there, by the way?
Well, it's actually been fantastic for November, but it's slowly changing and starting to cool off.
Yeah, I know we've had cold nights, and the last couple of days haven't been too bad. There you go, Jane. I turned your mic down. You can cough at will. Once you get a tickle in your throat, it just doesn't go away. It's been very moderate this week, and I know that through November it's supposed to be above average for temperature, but then we're going to get into the first of the year and things are going to go back to winter. But
oh yeah.
In the interim, and going on into next year, you have announced that you would like to run for and hopefully win the it's District 1, yes, New Hampshire State Senate District 1, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay,
yes.
And you are challenging whom?
Senate Minority Leader Jeff Woodburn is the current person that holds the seat.
Okay, that's what we guessed. So, all right. Well,
not being North Country folks ourselves, we were scratching our heads trying to remember who was the
who's in District 1.
Who's the current incumbent?
We know the name. We just didn't necessarily know it's District 1.
You obviously have loons up there.
Yes, we do.
All right. So, and then of course, Leon is the lead supporter for Griffin's Law year after year after year, and so we're happy to have you on the show. So anyway, I'm going to ask you why you decided to run, but I think I already know the answer.
Well, I took a look around at the upcoming election year next year, and a lot of people were asking me to stay in the House. Got a pretty good record in the House, I believe, and we were getting some stuff accomplished. But when I looked around at the North Country in the cog in the wheel of getting legislation for the North Country passed and the friction in the North Country between our elected leaders, it all points in one direction, and that is the current senator in the seat. He has been practicing partisan politics down in Concord to a degree which I think is actually kind of rare in Concord. And then he comes back up to the North Country and says he's doing the complete opposite. And it really irritates me when you have a politician that says one thing when he's back in his district and does something else when he's down in Concord.
So you're irritated with a lot of politicians then.
Kind of sort of like a senator that says one thing in New Hampshire and something else when she's down in D.C. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes, and unfortunately it's more common than what is good for the state or the nation.
Has anybody else expressed any interest in running against Woodburn?
There is. I believe we'll have a primary.
Okay. Any names? Or just suppositions and
I
speculations?
kind of hate to give my opponents a plug, but Dolly McPaul is talking about running. She's been an opponent of Northern Pass.
Uh-huh. We don't even know who she is. I don't think I've ever heard her name.
I've never heard the name either.
No. Okay.
Is she in the State House right now?
No, I don't believe she's ever held elective office. She's kind of championed the anti-Northern Pass, anti-Towers things. She sat on a couple commissions about that.
Okay. So her claim to fame is that. All right. That's good to know. Anyway, so, again, we're not from the North Country. Obviously, Northern Pass is one of the many issues that concern people there. And, we're just down here in the southern part of the state going, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? We don't know so much. We know where the North Country is. We go up there to be tourists and stuff. But other than that, I think there's a lot of things that go on up there issue-wise that most people down here in the southern part of the state aren't familiar with. What would you list as maybe the top 3 or 4 concerns for people in the North Country?
Well, definitely the top concern is the economy, and local economy has struggled since the paper mills has shut down. We've lost thousands of jobs, and quite often when Governor Lynch was governor, he'd come up when a mill would close, and he'd come up and say, we're going to get these jobs back, and we're going to do something, and then go back down to Concord and nothing happened. So economic policy is important to the North Country, but going hand in hand with that is current state tax policies in regards to business, in business tax reform that the GOP has been trying to get through, and we got a minor one through this year, but all those stifle the economic development in the North Country because you got a bad business tax rate, you've got travel costs, you've got energy costs, in just the remoteness of the area. So, and I guess that's another area where I disagree with the current senator. He was talking that the business tax reform passed this year was only going to affect the 1%. Only going to affect the 1%. Well, there's hundreds of businesses that tax reform will benefit because we did get it through, from the little mom-and-pop restaurants that employ 5 or 6 people to our local hardware stores, which unfortunately are disappearing at a rapid rate up here.
I bet they are. I mean, it's not like you have... I'm sorry, go ahead.
No.
Yeah.
Hi, Leon, it's Jane Cormier.
Hi, how are you doing, Jane?
I'm good. I have a question for you.
Sure.
I've been, in the past years, kind of looking at the North Country, and it's really, I think, a sad state of affairs to watch how little our state has done to assist growth in any category up north. But you know what? I hear that because the past decades have been so neglectful that the North Country has taken on a level of subsidy that's going to be very difficult to work with for a real conservative. So my question is, you're from the North Country and you know what's going on up there. When you go out and you campaign, how will you address this, the subsidy issue, and all of the really neglect that's been happening within the State House with regard to the North Country?
Well, and that is somewhat of a opinion up in the North Country, is that people in Concord kind of forget about the North Country. Mm-hmm. I actually think we've made some progress in the last few years of getting some legislation that has helped the North Country.
Good.
And so I kind of see that turning around, and just me, myself, getting out there. I'm very open on my Facebook page for being a representative, what's happening in Concord. So there's more people that are actually hearing about what's going on in Concord. And I guess I want to dispel the kind of the feeling that there's people up here want the subsidies, and the current senator quite often will spout off about how the North Country needs this welfare program or this help and that. The people in the North Country are just like people everywhere in New Hampshire, and they really want less government, leave me alone, less regulation, and keep your hand out of my wallet.
So, in other words, take away the subsidies, maybe take away some of the taxes and regulations, and let these people thrive. It always makes me wonder. You've got high cost energy, and you've got all these ex mills. Wouldn't they make great little hydro stations?
They worked that in some places, and then of course they've got the Burgess biomass plant in Berlin, which, depending on which side you talk to, is a good thing or a bad thing.
Right.
But part of that problem with that is there are caps on, and the whole energy regulation in the state of New Hampshire, to me, is crazy, and I can't say that I truly understand it, other than there's more rules and regulations on generating power and how much public service or Eversource now has to buy and what the rate they have to buy it at. And we need to get the state government out of that to a much bigger degree than what it is now. Because one of the reasons New Hampshire has, in my opinion, has such a high energy rate is because we've made bad decisions in Concord, and we've forced energy companies to do things that weren't in their best interest. So we need to back off that, let some of these energy companies make decisions on their own, and we have
RGGI, we have the RCP, we have all the regional rules and regulations, the power sharing plans, and all of these things. We were just talking to Tim Wigley, who's works for APAC, the Western Energy Alliance. We were talking about the latest screw-up, which is the Clean Power Plan, and how this will create a national cap-and-trade scheme when all that does is drive the cost of electricity up. So, we have Susan Olson, who, of course, has been building power plants or built power plants for 30 or 40 years. She knows a lot about energy, so we're pretty well-versed on the whole problem. And, the errors in our ways have been going on since around 2005, 2006, when the Democrats got complete control of the state of New Hampshire, passed all these crazy environmental protection rules, and how you had to use 25% green energy, and how you had to, and of course they defined green energy without including at the time hydro and nuclear, which was completely ridiculous. And so the entire scheme is built on the premise that they get to decide what is what kind of energy and what isn't, and what counts and what doesn't, and then they build up this regulatory structure and this carbon credit scheme to support their premise. And it just drives up the cost of everything. I mean, everything that runs on electricity, including government, costs more money. And so that's got to change. And it's got to change not just because, it's easier for you guys to use your resources, including wood and biomass, to create energy and create jobs, but because those businesses are paying those electricity rates. They're paying those higher rates. They're paying higher taxes for the regulatory state that's making the rates higher. And all things considered, it's a horrible, complex mess. We're going to take a really quick break, short break. Leanne, stay on the line. We'll be right back. This is Grok Talk.